Hey guys, welcome back to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great Sunday. We're joined by Kory Woods, MLive beat reporter for the Detroit Lions. Maybe the Detroit Pistons still. I'm not entirely sure. I know the last time.
I'm not sure either. It's like,
Yeah. I think the last time we had you on, you were still covering the Detroit Pistons, and we haven't had you on, I think, since October. So we haven't, had a chance to chat. But you did get a promotion, which congratulations on that. But how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Just you hit me up and it said, "Hey, you down to come on the show?" And it's like, well, thanks to the Lions, I don't have anything to do today. So, I mean, why not? Let's get to it. I'm all for it. And it's just always just a good time to hop on the show and speak with you and just talk basketball because we both have been on this Pistons team for a little bit for a little bit of a while, but I will say that you may have a better grasp of what's going on lately than I do, but hey, let's have some fun with it.
Yeah, I mean the topics today, I'm not gonna, try to test you to like what's a SARS, minutes per game type thing. Like I'm not gonna do that.
Oh, because I don't know.
Before we kind of get into it, I did want to kind of ask you just like with the Lions this year, and I know it's the Pistons podcast and people get pissed when I talk Detroit Lions for whatever reason, but hey, fuck them. What was it like this year? Just like, obviously you got promoted. I know you do a podcast with MLive now. If you want to, plug that for the people that maybe don't know that you do a Detroit Lions podcast, but what was it like this year, like getting promoted, covering a team that broke all types of records this season?
Well, I would say it was very different. For those who don't know, at MLive, I was hired in a hybrid role. So the Detroit Pistons were my main beat, my predominant beat. I was everything all Pistons. But at the same time, I did have the dual responsibility of covering the Lions, and I was covering the Lions as our number 3 writer, our third writer on the Lions beat. So during the Lions season, because it's so much news that you don't want to miss out on it, that I would predominantly be Lions through or during most of the season, even though there's an overlap between NBA and NFL. I would be predominantly Lions until the NFL season is over, and I would pick up Piston stuff, as permits and go to games as I can. But when the season is over, I would switch back to fully Pistons. But what happened is, our lead beat writer Kyle Meinke, he left not only MLive, he left the country right before the election. He moved to Germany. So at that point, I was promoted, moved up to number 2 on the beat, and I immediately was taken off of Pistons. My last Pistons game was the Pistons-Lakers game at OCA. That I asked him, could I cover that? It was actually supposed to be done before that, but I asked him to push to cover that game because, you remember I did the interview with Isaiah Thomas, and, I just said, hey, Isaiah had this to say about LeBron. I want to go ahead and see if I can at least get a chance to speak to LeBron about that quote, and then boom, I'll end it right there. So, I mean, I know a little bit long with it, but just to kind of like bring it home, covering that team this season was pretty wild. I mean, Ford Field was super loud. The fan engagement inside of the arena was electric, and it just felt like it was something special going on. Granted, the season did not end the way that everybody would have liked it to, but just the fact that the Lions are they won back-to-back NFC North titles. The fact they went 15-2, they clinched the number 1 seed for the first time ever, and this is with all of the injuries they had. It was just an electric season, something memorable, and hopefully they'll be able to duplicate that success next year. But with going to the NFC title game and advancing to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully. I mean, with all those injuries, I thought it was going to be really hard for them to get to the Super Bowl. But I would be lying to you. No pun intended. If I told you that like I wasn't catching Lions games, I didn't See Lions fans chanting Jared Goff at the game.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the, they had that season, historic season, like 15-2. I did not expect that. I thought they might win like anywhere from like 11-13, but obviously they're OC and DC will be coaching other teams. I'm not gonna get into that too much, but just kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about it, because I know Pistons beat after that Lakers game. You weren't covering it. I know you reached out to me when JB was on the FanDuel episode of running back, talking about want to get Dan Campbell into a Pistons locker room, which that might actually happen sooner than later after all these firings are done.
Yeah, that definitely might happen sooner or later. I need to be a fly on the wall if that happens as well. I don't know if the Pistons will allow it, but if I can, I need to be a fly on that wall, because I think they have they have a fiery coach that believes in them, in JB Bickerstaff, and I believe that is why you're seeing this current turnaround for this team, and they're figuring out ways to close out games. But who knows? That Dan Campbell juice might be the thing that puts them right over that edge and just start running through walls.
Yeah, JB got ejected.
A quick back-to-back ejection. I was like, whoa, okay.
I'm reading lips. I caught a couple F-bombs. I was like, it got like that. I'm like, all right. So, no, enough Lions talk. I don't want to, piss people off, because I know sometimes I'll talk Lions on this podcast. People
just so y'all know, y'all gonna see multiple screens pop up in my glasses, because I am still on the clock, even though I'm on this podcast. So don't be alarmed.
No, well, we can carry it if there's any breaking news or new. You never know, new coaches, leaving, getting hired. I did want to start the podcast with All-Star stuff. So obviously we got to see the All-Star starters that were announced on TNT, and I'll put it on the screen for people that are watching that maybe didn't get to see it. So I wanted to ask you, this is the starting five. Do you feel that Cade Cunningham possibly got snubbed from this? Because I look at Jalen Brunson, I think you could make a case. Donovan Mitchell, obviously, they've won a lot, but the stats are kind of, I feel, underwhelming to be in the backcourt. But do you think Cade Cunningham had a case to be a starter this year?
Absolutely. Just looking at the way that he's been playing this season, it's been phenomenal. And the only thing I would say is that I won't say he was snubbed just based off of the way the voting is. It is the way it is. It's no way around that. That fan vote does play some weight. I think that when you look at the media, I think the media got it right. But when you start looking at the fans and then the players, it's like, okay, how are some of these guys above Cade Cunningham? As a matter of fact, how is LaMelo Ball have a closer shot to becoming an all-star starter over Cade Cunningham? And I put some notes to the side right here. There are only two people in the NBA right now that have 25 that are averaging at least 25 points, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds. That's Jokic and Cade.
Yeah.
Only two. A close third in that metric is LeBron. But when you have a guy that is playing like that, he's contributing to winning basketball. He's a guy that is pretty much, if you take him off this team right now, they are back in the lottery. If, who knows, maybe they might have 4 or 5 win games, and that's no disrespect to the team. It's, how does this guy not get more recognition and more respect than it is? And I think maybe it might just be a stigma over the fact that the Pistons have been a losing organization since after Casey's first year. So I think there's an argument for him being snubbed, most definitely, just based off of the way that he's playing. Heck, look at what he's doing right now in the month of January. The month of January, he's 27-9-6. I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know what we're watching. Right now, you're watching a superstar blossom before your eyes. So I kind of lean towards I'll say he's snubbed. I kind of lean towards it, but I will say that if he's producing this well again next year and the Pistons are winning even more games and he's not in there, then okay, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? So it's a snub. I would say it's a real snub though if he does not make any of these the All-Star in general.
Yeah, I if he's not a reserve, then there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I'm getting at. If he's not a reserve, the system is broken.
So I did put some stats with just comparing his stats for the season to Jalen Brunson's and Donovan Mitchell's. Like Jalen Brunson, you could make a case, I think.
Yeah.
They're a top seed in the Eastern Conference. He's one of their best players head to head. The Pistons are 2-1, and in the 2 games at MSG, Cade has dropped 30 points. 30 points in the second half, their last game, which is even more impressive at MSG with the healthy New York Knicks team. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with Cleveland, the Pistons haven't beat Cleveland. They actually have to play them tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. They're actually on a 3-game losing streak, which I was kind of surprised when I was looking it up. I was like, oh, they're kind of like coming back to earth a little bit. But like the Donovan Mitchell thing, it's just like 23.5, 4.5, and 4.5. Like I think he's only in there because the Cavs have the number 1 seed personally.
Absolutely. Because it's just a numbers thing right now. I guess they want to say that Donovan Mitchell is contributing to more winning basketball, but if you're just going numbers to numbers, I mean, it's right on the screen. Cade is balling.
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Pistons were the 6th seed for about a day or so. Even though the ESPN standings still have them 6, it hasn't updated yet, but Orlando beat them, so they have the tiebreaker, obviously. So they're the 6th seed. The Pistons are the 7th seed. But I did want to put the numbers on the screen because I've seen some people talk about this week about Cade, possibly getting snubbed from the All-Star game as a starter. I know Isaiah Thomas said it really early in the season, saying like if Cade and Trae Young aren't starters, then like what are we doing as media members? What are we doing as fans and as players as well?
I mean, that's an argument. It's right now these All-Star votes, it's a popularity contest, who you want to see, who's got the better branding as opposed to just who is playing the best basketball. I kind of honestly don't even really like the fan aspect of the votes anyway, but that's neither here nor there. I think it's just when you're talking about seeing the best, I think it should be down to media, players, and coaches. I mean, it's not to say that the fans are dumb or anything like that, because I mean, honestly, I could go as far as saying that a lot of these fans, some of them may even be better than some media people when it comes to picking these all-stars. But I just think that when you have too many variables added into an all-star game and who gets selected, things get a little bit murky. And I think just going with a more simpler method across the board would be better, because again, if you would, like we just said, if Cade is not a starter, okay, cool. But if he's not a reserve, then this system is broken, because there is no way that a guy that is averaging what Cade is averaging with basically 45% from the field and 37% from 3-point, he's contributing to winning basketball. And guys like LaMelo Ball are have more votes than him simply because they have a better brand and their team is at the bottom of the barrel. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I know JB said, like, find me a guard in the East that is doing it on both ends like Cade is doing. Like,
you're not.
Exactly. Like, Cade has taken a huge step in, like, defense this year, and not a lot of people have talked about it. Like, there was a compilation of him just doing chase down blocks like he's LeBron James out there. Like, his defense this year, I think has been like really slept on overall, but I hope he's a reserve because I think he deserves it.
And I also think you're seeing an uptick in Cade's game because he's healthy. Yeah. I mean, he's only missed 4 games so far this year, and knock on wood, but for Cade, that's that's pretty much of a sign of a clean bill of health for him, because he's gone down with some injuries that's kept him out for a series of games. So for it to be 45 games in, and he's played 41, played and started in 41, that's good for him.
Yeah, I think so too. I see a lot of people in the chat right now. We got over 500 people in here right now, and they're just chomping at the bit, Kory. They're like, trade, because it's that time of year. Trading deadline season is upon us. We did get a report from Shams Charania this week on a ESPN Plus article. So it's really weird. So in one breath, they want to be buyers. In another breath, they're like, we'll be facilitators. So I'm going to phrase the question this way for you. With their available cap space, they have around $14 million since they reconstructed Paul Reed's contract. They have an available roster spot. What avenue do you think they should take? Because I think being buyers, some fans kind of have tunnel vision and they want to skip steps. And Trajan, told you were in that media room that they weren't going to skip steps. They were going to do this the right way. So at this deadline, like, what are you expecting out of them to, possibly attack?
I think there are two things that they probably need to attack. First off, I still think they need to go ahead and find a true stretch forward for this team. I think that is something that they are really, really missing. I also think they still need more scoring out of that wing position. I will say, they've Asar Thompson coming back in this, the way he's been able to play on both ends of the court, that's been a huge plus for them. But I think if they can improve their scoring and improve that scoring around Cade Cunningham, that is something that they really need to entertain. And as far as being buyers or facilitators, here's what I'll say. I think they should only be buyers at the trade deadline if the trade makes sense. Now, I know that's like, oh, well, that's not really any type of analysis. But I mean, when you're talking about this team right now, where are they at? They're floating between 6 and 8 on any given week. That to me means that you only should really be making a trade if it's going to get you over the hump, because as currently constructed, you're either a playoff team or a play-in team. And I think we can both say, if this team is a play-in or playoff team, this season, they're way ahead of schedule. So I don't think you need to go, unless you're going to get an all-star that's going to thrust you into that top 4, stand pat and let the season play out the way it is. Because, I mean, let's say you go out there and you get a Zach LaVine who pretty much does not want to come to Detroit, regardless of how you say it. Do you really want to be tied into that guy's contract for the next couple of years that's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger? Correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers. They're a little bit fudged since I last seen them, but I believe I think next year he's going to get paid as much as 55 million per season. Okay. Does Zach LaVine make you, just acquiring Zach LaVine, and you're probably going to have to give up some pieces to get him, does Zach LaVine make you an Eastern Conference contender? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on who they get. We both know I was high on Brandon Ingram. I'm not so sure how, if they should give up any type of the farm for him right now, because again, this team is trending as a top 6 team. So it's kind of tricky. I'll just say that if they're able to make a trade that allows them to get some additional scoring, or another ball handler where they're not tied into the deal financially for very long, then okay, cool. Because that is why I like the signings of Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, who I think they need to keep off the trade market and retain this offseason, and then them acquiring Tim Hardaway Jr., because those are all deals you can get out of real easy. I mean, if you're Tim Hardaway, expiring contract, you might be able to flip him in some type of package deal. I think that Tobias Harris' first year here is a wash as far as the deal goes. So next year you're looking into that being an expiring deal. So it's kind of like, I'm just in the mood of just kind of like just see how this team is looking over these next couple of games and see what these teams are talking about as far as trades. But I don't think they need to panic and go make some trade where they're locked into somebody's contract long term. I think the way that they've been building this right now, they're ahead of schedule. No need to just, abandon that.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the season, if you followed the Pistons, they were saying like, we'll be a dumping ground. If you have a bad contract, we'll take it. Just give us draft assets. And that was the first move that Trajan made. He traded a Quentin Grimes, who was a young, promising player, but he got a THJ who was on the NBA Finals team last year in Dallas, and he got 3 second-round picks. And one of the second-round picks they got is going to be Toronto's second-round pick, which is basically going to be a late first because Toronto's really bad this year. I think what I would like kind of tell fans is it's okay to be excited about this team. It's okay to, want to get another secondary ball handler next to Cade, a number 2 option, a backup point guard. I understand it. This is probably the most excited we've been about the Detroit Pistons, probably since like the 41-41 season with Blake Griffin and Dwayne Casey. Like they haven't done that much winning during the rebuild. It's been really rough, especially last year, like 14 wins. Like that was really drastic. Imagine doing podcasts on a week-to-week basis during a 28-game losing streak.
Imagine being there every home game.
Yeah, literally, man. Imagine trying to cover the team and trying to find bright spots. I get it. I think what the Pistons are, telling us without actually telling us is we will be buyers if the move makes sense contractually and if it makes us a better basketball team. We'll be facilitators if we can get, and we're going to get into these, 5-team trade proposals from Kevin O'Connor a little bit later. We'll be facilitators if maybe we could get a player to help us out. I'm going to bring up this team, Kory, and you probably know where I'm going with this. When the Cavs were in their rebuild, they weren't going out and making these sexy free agent acquisitions. They put themselves in the Jared Allen trade because they had available cap space and they're willing to take on his deal. Same with Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert, to an extent, isn't like the same time of like impact players as Jared Allen, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. I think that's what the Pistons are going to do. They're going to take a Cleveland Cavalier approach where they have cap space, they have a roster spot open. Who knows what happens with Zach LaVine at the deadline? Who knows what happens with Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler? There's a lot of disgruntled stars out there right now, and the Pistons are the only team in the NBA that have one available cap space, but they have $14 million worth of available cap space and an open roster spot. So I think Trajan in this front office is being very strategic and opportunistic with this deadline that is fastly approaching on February 6th. I'm not really sure what they're going to do, and I don't even think they know what they're going to do yet because it's still very, very early. We still have another week and a half until this deadline is over. But I would just caution fans, like, pump the brakes a little bit of trying to like put all your chips in for a superstar.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there will be they're kind of like don't know what they want to do yet because again they're ahead of schedule. I mean, they have to see what is going to be the move that makes the most sense for us. I think really it's going to be financially because when you start winning games, when you start becoming an attractive destination, you want to be able to have some type of financial flexibility to be able to go out in free agency and maybe lure a star here, something that Detroit really has not been able to do over the past couple of years. So if you have the financial flexibility and you're winning, again, this is a great spot for them right now. So yeah, I only see them being buyers if they're able to get something that truly makes them better, that is not a real bloated contract. I mean, they were. I think the dumping ground thing was really smart early on because Trajan Langdon said they were going to be a dumping ground if they were able to get the assets to come with it. Right now, with them being a little bit ahead of schedule as far as this rebuild is concerned, they don't have to be so they don't have to come off as desperate.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? They don't have to just be like, okay, we're gonna just give you whatever just so we can go ahead and get over this hump right now. No, we're we're in a real sweet spot. If we're 6-8 in year one after coming off 14-68, we're good.
Yeah, I did not expect. I'll take it on the chin. I did not expect this team to be on a 40-win pace. I just didn't, Kory.
I didn't either.
My message to fans was I had them around like the 27-30 range, and they'll probably shatter that, assuming that everyone stays healthy and no more, season-ending injuries. Like Jaden Ivey, even though like the Pistons haven't said it, I just don't expect him back this year.
No.
The type of injury he had, like it takes the bone 2 months to heal. Like I don't really think he would come back. If he did come back, it would be like May, and the Pistons would have to win a playoff series.
I don't think that he's coming back. I don't think that he should come back. Just the fact that they're still in the 6-8 range and he's out.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows that they're again in a really, really good spot. So I don't think they should rush him back. Let him heal, let him get his explosiveness back. Just pray that he's ready by training camp, and yeah, go from there. I mean, right now, even with that injury, it was a devastating injury, but I mean, right now, the franchise is still in a really good spot right now, and that's just thanks to what Trajan Langdon has done with the coaching by JB Bickerstaff and his whole team, and then also too, people hate me giving this guy his props. Got to give Tom Gores his props because again, at the end of the day, this man $65 million to turn his team around. So, I mean, they're in a really sweet spot for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to kind of give Tom Gores credit for actually eating that contract because it was his decision to hire Monty Williams. But we're not going to get on the Monty train this early in the podcast, because I know anytime you mention the M name on this podcast, the chat goes wild and it gets pretty dicey in here. I'm not even going to mention him.
My bad, y'all. I'm the one that always breaks the rules and shakes up the tables. This is my fault. Sorry.
It's all good. I know you touched on Zach LaVine, and there was a reporting from Jake Fisher, who works with Mark Stein now on the Stein line, and he had a quote with the Detroit Pistons, and I'll just read it for people that are listening right now and watching live on YouTube. It says, "I still don't expect Detroit to do anything that would be taking the ball out of Cade Cunningham's hands to the degree of adding someone like Zach LaVine. So I'm not considering Detroit really a Zach LaVine team." So obviously you mentioned the contract. I did look it up when you were talking. So he's set to make $45 million, almost $46 million in 2025, 2026. And the last year of his contract where he has a player option, it's up to $48.9 million. And he does have a 15% trade bonus if he does get traded on top of that. So I doubt the Bulls want to give him 15% of what they're already paying him. Those numbers do come from SpotTrack.com. Yeah. But I've heard this with not only Zach LaVine, but I also heard it with Brandon Ingram this week, listening to podcasts. Like a lot of other NBA, podcasters are getting the sense that Detroit's not really looking to make that home run swing. Obviously, like we've talked about Zach LaVine last year. I mean, he had foot surgery. We don't really know if he did that on purpose not to come to Detroit. Some people speculated it, but I'm not really sure. But like, maybe I'll just ask you this: like, do you think that's kind of like the right approach, not to try to put all your chips for a Zach LaVine?
Yeah, I mean, no, don't do it because again, just like Cade Cunningham, he's having a good season as far as his health. He's played 41 games this year as well, so that's a good sign to see. But I think that when you have a guy like Cade, you need complementary pieces around him. And I think that what my concern would be is that while Zach LaVine is a great player, would he, for you Game of Thrones people out there, would he bend the knee? Because that is what you're coming, because even if it were Brandon Ingram, anybody that comes to this team, this is Cade Cunningham's team. And unless you're trading for somebody like Giannis or LeBron or Curry, and we're not saying they're going there, I'm just saying as an example, unless you're trading for guys that are former NBA MVPs, even then, still probably then, this is Cade Cunningham's team. I still, from what we're seeing from Zach LaVine, this does not look like a guy that's going to want to come here and give up that responsibility of being the guy. Jaden Ivey, I'm not going to put him in the Zach LaVine, category as far as talent and scoring ability, but Jaden Ivey understands the pecking order in Detroit.
Yeah.
He's willing to be a complementary piece to Cade Cunningham. You got a guy like Malik Beasley, probably got one of the greenest lights on the team, wants to be a complementary piece to Cade Cunningham. You got to get guys that are going to understand that this team is only going to go as far as Cade goes. So I don't think that as talented as LaVine is, I just think with that aspect and how big that contract is, those just for me alone, the contract will be a red flag, just off the contract alone. But the other intangibles just make it I would be out.
I think the contract is more attractive this year than it was last year because there's one less year on it.
Yeah.
I think fit-wise, it could work. Now, I would kind of disagree with Jake saying, like, the Pistons don't want to take the ball out of Cade's hands. I don't really think Zach LaVine would really take the ball out of Cade Cunningham's hands.
Okay.
My thing is, I've seen Zach LaVine take a second seat to other players that he's played with before and still be able to get his shots and get his. I think fit-wise, it would make a lot of sense. But what I would tell Pistons fans is the time to trade for him was last year when his value was like dirt. This year, I think his value is way more, one, because there's one less year on that contract. And two, he's having a really good season on both ends of the floor. Like defensively, I was, looking at some numbers on, NBA.com and watching kind of like their advanced stats videos. Like, he's actually trying this year on defense. He's had multiple 30 balls. He's a really good player. If he does get traded, if they do deal him, I could see Golden State maybe knocking on the door because, they obviously are an average team, and I don't think they want to be an average team with Steph Curry and Draymond Green. I could see Phoenix saying, like, hey, we can't get Jimmy Butler, but why not try to get a Zach LaVine? Even though him and Booker on the team would kind of be weird because they're similar players. But I just don't see a Zach LaVine to the Pistons right now. Or maybe not anytime soon. I think fit-wise, it makes a whole lot of sense next to Cade to give him another 2 option. But I also think in the back of my head, it's just like, and Jaden Ivey was playing some of the best ball of his career this year, especially before he went down after he came back from that foot injury. He was shooting 50% from 3. The catch and shoot numbers looked really good. I know I've told you, like, give Jaden Ivey a couple of years. Maybe he can be a Zach LaVine type player. Not saying they're the same type of athlete or anything.
Yeah, like absolutely. That, but just as far as production and value.
Yeah, like give Jaden Ivey a couple of years because I think the injury that he had, I don't think it's really going to affect his athleticism or his burst or anything like that. I think he'll come back better than ever because we know the type of workhorse he is. But I would just caution Pistons fans that are on the Zach LaVine train. I think the asking price is going to be way too much to the point where, the Bulls might want a Ron Holland. They might want an Asar. They might want some of your better players plus draft picks and, some cap relief as well. And I just think when you get to that point in that kind of conversation with a team like the Bulls, not to mention they're in your division, I just don't think that, trading for him right now is an option for them.
I think that anything where you're giving up pieces of your young core to get LaVine, I just don't think that's the way to go. I mean, obviously Cade's not going anywhere, but I mean, when you're looking at like Holland, Asar, Isaiah Stewart, just off of the year he's having, I wouldn't give him up just for the year that he's having defensively. I think that you need to keep a guy like that. Duran, depending on who the player would be, what the trade would be. I think Duran could be maybe one of those young guys you might part with, but again, I would try to hold on to some of those young pieces as long as you can, especially right now when you're looking at Isaiah Stewart's deal. It's pretty cheap right now with the way the cap is rising. It's a very favorable deal. So, I'm just really on the Cole Stan Pat train. But if you're able to get a guy that you believe is going to change the course of this franchise, that's when you consider some of those difficult decisions. Right now, I don't think they're in that type of position. I would say that if they were like the how can I put it? Let's say they were like a number 4 seed and say, hey, this guy might put us into number 2 or 1.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right now you're floating between 6 and 8 as is, and you don't even have your starting shooting guard.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but you don't want to
Yeah.
like make like a Blake Griffin type of trade where at the surface, like Blake had some of his best ball of his career in Detroit, but he couldn't stay
Mhm.
healthy. I'm not saying
Yeah.
trading for Levine would be like that, but you can kind of like compare the two. But I think
Yeah.
Levine's a good player. If I did have the guess, maybe Denver gets a little desperate and they they just do Michael Porter Jr. for Zach Levine, straight up.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see because I do think he may be on the move because where the Bulls are at right now, they're the 10 seed. Maybe they want to increase their chances of getting maybe Cooper Flag, a Dylan Harper, because this draft this year's pretty good at the top.
And I think for Levine, I think Levine would be good on a team that is trying to get over the hump. That is like, hey, we need to thrust ourselves into that championship window, championship contender. I think he would be a. Again, I don't want to say. I'm not up here saying that Levine can't ball. He has no skills or nothing like that. I'm not that crazy. I'm just talking about for how the team is constructed and where they're trying to go. Levine right now on a what the Buck.
I think we lost Kory for a second, but I think he was talking about Levine and the Bucks.
Miami, they'd be good. I mean, teams that are trying to like go for it this season, I think Levine is a guy you trade for because I think he could put you over the top for the Pistons. I mean,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
it doesn't for the way they're performing right now. I just don't think that it makes sense.
yeah, I agree with you. I did want to touch on it for a little bit because I know a lot of Pistons fans have been on the Levine train. Like last week, I had Zarek and his brother on, and his brother is a really big Zach Levine guy, and saying like, we could make it work. I was just like, but does Jaden Ivey want to come off the bench again? Like you have to take that in consideration.
Yeah.
And he's up for a contract extension too this summer, so um,
Yeah.
it gets really dicey. I did want to go over to this 5-team trade, and there's been a lot of talk about Jimmy Butler. I'm sure even covering the NFL, you've probably seen all the drama with Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler. Kevin O'Connor put out this 5-team trade, which there's been a lot of reporting that if Jimmy does get down, it'll be anywhere from a 3 to 5-team trade. But kind of wanted to react to it. So it says Jimmy Butler goes to the Suns. Bulls get Beal and picks. Bucks get Levine. Heat get Middleton, Connaughton, and picks. And the Detroit Pistons get Bobby Portis. So what do you kind of think of like a trade like this where the Pistons, you mentioned you need more stretch fours. Bobby Portis, I think, would qualify as a stretch four. And he's a defender. What would you make of a trade like this if it did go down?
Bobby Portis is a Detroit Piston.
Yeah.
He's a Piston. He's a guy. He's the stretch four you need. The guy plays hard on both ends of the floor. He is competitive. He's physical, And from everything that we read, he is a great locker room guy. That right there is the type of trade that you need, because also not only are you getting what you need from him as far as production wise. I mean, I believe this I mean, right now, just looking at it, this guy 13, 8, and 47% from the field. Yes, grab that. And on top of it, you're getting another veteran in the locker room, battle tested, playoff tested, knows how to win. Yes, if you're able to get a Bobby Portis in Detroit, make that move. I would most definitely make that move.
Well, not only that, Kory, but could you imagine a Bobby Portis, Isaiah Stewart, a Ron Holland off your bench?
That's first off the okay. I almost said something that almost got you yanked off of YouTube. But I'll just say it like this: Isaiah Stewart, Bobby Portis, Ron Holland. That right there is probably 3 of your 5 all NBA scrap team right there. So, I mean, yes, having those guys off the bench. I mean, you're having you're adding scrappiness, you're adding competitors. I don't know how realistic that deal would go down, but if the Pistons are able to grab somebody like that, I want to look up his contract real quick, but I would most definitely enter just off of the player that I've seen from Bobby Portis. That is somebody that I would entertain. I'm about to look up his contract real quick, because obviously I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I know it off the top of my head. If it's a solid deal, I mean, why not? Like, let me see right here. Bobby Portis. So he'll have this offseason. He'll have going into next season. He's getting 20. He's gonna pay 12.5 this year. Next year he have a player option for 13.4, and then an unrestricted free agent. So I mean, yeah, if you can get a guy like that in here, and the thing is, he's basically getting paid the same thing that Isaiah Stewart's getting paid. Yes, why not?
Yeah. I've been kind of screaming for Bobby Portis because he just felt like a Detroit Piston for a few years. Just the type of player he is. And like, I know, like, when we talk about stretch forwards, like the first player that come to Pistons fans' mind is Lauri Markkanen, but that's very unrealistic. Like, the guy just got paid. He got paid like a #1 option. I don't really think a Lauri Markkanen, especially with Danny Ainge being the GM, would be a move that the Pistons could pull off, because you know how many draft picks the guys is going to want to get. But Bobby Portis, I think, is a sneaky, under the radar, a good like B minus player, and not to mention, like, there's some chemistry there with Malik Beasley from last year. I mean, you could have Malik Beasley off the bench talking shit, and then you got to go through Bobby Portis and Isaiah Stewart. Like, good luck with that.
Yeah,
because we know how much that this team talks, and like it's honestly crazy. I don't know if you caught Jonathan Isaac's comments about, like, the Pistons.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, the Pistons are trying to be tough and play like we do. Almost like, someone give this kid a history lesson. Someone give this kid a history lesson.
I mean, I looked at it and I laughed, because I mean, even when this team has not been having their not so great years, Detroit has always been known as a very scrappy team. So for him to kind of say, like, that is, they trying to be like us. I mean, I've never heard anybody mention toughness and Orlando in the same breath. I mean, you guys have, and to correct me if I'm wrong, you guys still have Mickey Mouse on your patch, for crying out loud. So I don't know anybody that's equating the Orlando Magic as this tough team. I mean, come on, heck, y'all got into it with the Pistons, and we saw what happened at OCEA. So I mean, I don't know, man. It's just maybe just a cute soundbite for him right now.
Yeah, it's just I find it kind of funny. I will say that Magic team is very scrappy. They play aggressive. Like, I was holding my breath when Jalen Suggs tackled Cade Cunningham yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. I was like, that looked so similar to what Cole Anthony did to Jaden Ivey. I was like, man, if he's hurt, like that is just such a reckless basketball play. But I will give them
Absolutely.
credit. They are a very scrappy team when they're healthy. They do talk a lot of
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
They're one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. You have to give them
Yeah.
that respect. But
Absolutely.
to say
They're
that like
balling.
they're trying to be like us, I was like, brother, what?
Yeah, it was just like, okay, let's not be blasphemous here. That's all I was just getting there. Like, come on now, just
Yeah,
go over this a little bit.
it kind of goes into my next topic with you. It's like Pistons are getting under the skin of a lot of teams. It's not just the Magic. The Knicks. Knicks fans were in their feelings when Isaiah Stewart posted them celebrating in the locker room. The Pacers game with Isaiah Stewart, Miles Turner, that got chippy. So why do you think the Detroit Pistons are getting under the skin of some of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, you think?
I'm going to go about this. I'm gonna go about this a little bit different direction.
Okay.
I don't think it's, how can I put this? I want to phrase this correctly. I know we're trying to get off of the Lions, but I think what you're starting to see with all of these Detroit teams, Lions, Pistons, Tigers, Red Wings, they're getting under everybody's skin because they're embodying that blue collar grit mentality. And these other the other teams, they're used to Detroit being walked over in the past couple of years. So now when you're starting to see Detroit teams turn it around, you're seeing that bravado come out. You're seeing that Detroit versus everybody come out. That we label it grit now, but it used to be, but the other word for it was just blue collar. So you're starting to see that work ethic, that hard nosed mentality of these teams embodying the spirit of the city, and that's oozing out into the play. And I think that is why they're starting to get under the skin of other teams, because they're like, hey, y'all can't punk us anymore. I think that's a bit. I think that was a really big thing of why teams were getting, why the Lions were getting under a lot of team skin. The Lions were getting punked by so many other franchises for decades that it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. So I think that was the thing. So I think that's the same thing right now with the Pistons. You were used to teams coming in here and resting your starters, or you got guys like Jaylen Brown just saying like, hey, whatever, we could throw our bench players out there and beat them. Can't do that. Can't do that no more with this team. They're learning how to win. They're learning how to close games, and I think that's what's really getting under the skin of teams, that they can't underestimate Detroit anymore. They now know that when they go against the Pistons, they have to play their A game. And I believe that comes from the top down. They have a coach that is demanding it out of them. That's demanding that they not only play their best game, but they play with that edge, that nastiness. I mean, well, to paraphrase him, what was a couple of weeks ago when after that Pacers Pistons game, when he was asked about the rivalry coming back, JB Bickerstaff is like, if you basically paraphrase, but y'all on that kind of time, all right, let's go there. He's giving these guys a swagger that has been missing from this organization for a while. And with this, I don't want to come down on a whole buddy NBA league, but right now the Pistons are kind of getting back to being, man, screw that. We coming to win. Whatever. Let's get to it. That's rough. That ruffles feathers.
Yeah, when Cade was on TNT and they asked him about Jalen Green, he's like, "Yeah, no handshakes. We know what it is. Like, we're just going out there. We're going out there to compete. We're going out there to punch you in the mouth. And if you don't like it, you don't like it." And I think with the Pacers thing, man, like it wasn't just the players. Like JB Bickerstaff and Rick Carlisle were like yelling at each other, like in their faces at the coaching line at half court. Like they were getting into it. I know the Knicks fan base took exception of the Pistons celebrating like that. They're like, oh, it's like that. You're celebrating like you won a championship. But I mean, I think JB is a big reason why they have that edge, why they have that confidence. And you listen to any of these players this year, they're like, he is so easy to play for. He breaks down the game in such a simple form where I can actually understand it. And, you know, he goes to war for us. I mean, how many times last year, and I'm going to say the M word right now, I'm just warning you guys. How many times last year did you see Monty Williams, like, actually do a coach's challenge or get ejected for that matter? He didn't. He didn't challenge plays. He wasn't, you know, fighting for his guys. JB is. And I think the players love that.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously I have not been there since, I guess what, November-ish?
Mm-hmm.
But when I was there and I was talking to players, they spoke about JB Bickerstaff and playing for him and what he's brought to the organization in a way. And again, this is just compare and contrast. They spoke about him in a way that I did not hear them speak about Monty Williams. It was more so closer to the way that they talked about JB Bickerstaff was almost with along the same line of reverence, maybe a little bit more, but along the same line of reverence they spoke with about Dwayne Casey. So and then you're just seeing these guys. You're seeing in the play, you're seeing what it's like to have a coach that just honestly looks like he has a pulse. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I know that's maybe rude to say, but it is what it is. It's like JB Bickerstaff has injected energy into this franchise. He's in just off rip. The first time we spoke with him, it was just real down to earth dude. Loves the game, but he's about competition. He's about competing. He's about, if you're not playing hard, you're not playing. And when you have a guy that is that demanding, you're starting to see the fruits of the labor. And sorry y'all, I'm just getting breaking news from my phone, so I just had to look at that real quick. So
make sure it's something major.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's interesting. Doesn't have to do with the Lions anymore, but it's interesting.
Is it NFL news?
Yeah, the Bears are hiring Dennis Allen as their new defensive coordinator. I mean, it was rumored. It was rumored. I thought that when the Lions were, look, I'm not trying to make y'all mad, just when before they promoted Kelvin Shepherd, I thought they might try to bring him in here for the interview, but it was long rumored, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bears are going to be a lot better. I think a lot of Lions fans are still kind of ticked off, but they're putting together a pretty good staff.
My friend called Ben Johnson Adam Gase 2.0. Do with that whatever y'all will.
Oh man, the shots fired. That's oh wow. Oh, that's hilarious. Wow, Adam Gase 2.0. I have not heard that name yet.
I was like, wow.
I feel like most basketball fans are also football fans too, so
yeah.
They'll know who Adam Gase is. But man,
yeah,
that's kind of funny. So we've been talking about the Pistons competing, Eastern Conference teams not liking them, but I kind of wanted to get like your perspective. I don't know how many games you've been able to catch, but do you think that the Pistons can honestly like really push for a playoff spot this year? We're halfway through the season. They've been kind of like floating around 500. They're one game over 500 right now. Do you think this is a legitimate playoff team?
Well, from they're 23-22 in the first half of that schedule was brutal. I mean, just looking at it right now, I had to pull it up. That first half of that schedule was pretty brutal. So right now, on this backside of things, I mean, let me just kind of look at what they have going on right now, because like you said, I'm just kind of getting back into the swing of the basketball. But I mean, you got Cleveland on Monday. That's going to be a tough one. I mean, so I think their next three games are going to be pretty tough ones. You know, Cleveland, Indiana, Dallas. Those are going to be some tough games. But then after that, I mean, you got Chicago, Atlanta, Cleveland again, Philly, Charlotte, Chicago back to back. I mean, I think this next stretch between this January between February 24th stretch, I think that's where we're really gonna really determine what type of team, see whether they're a playoff team or not, because they have a lot of very winnable games, but they also have a couple of tough ones sprinkled in there. I think that Dallas game, I think Dallas can be beaten the way they're playing right now. Cleveland's going to be tough. I think Philadelphia is vulnerable. San Antonio, that could be a tough out. But yeah, that the stretch from tomorrow through February 24th, I think that will determine whether this becomes a playoff team. And I think if they're able to, um, I'll say if they drop no more than, let's say 5 games at most. If they drop no more than 5 games over that stretch, we can start thinking about this team making a push for the playoffs, not the play in. Because I think right now they're a shoe in for, unless something just drastic happens. I think they're a shoe in to be bare minimum a play in team right now. But if they're able to kind of like go through this next month, dropping no more than 5 games, I think you can start talking about them being a playoff team.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially if you look at their road record over the last 9 games, they're 7-2.
Yeah.
They're road warriors. I don't understand it. They play so much better on the road, and someone said that it's because the energy at LCA is not there, and you don't have Jared Goff chance. Which I was like, hey, maybe that's it. I don't know. But even Malik Beasley said that like we like going into opposing arenas and talking shit and like ruining their nights. Like we just like doing that. But I think if they like this week, they have 4 games, 3 Central Division rivals. I think if they can end this week 2-2, it'd be an accomplishment. And that's kind of like what they've done throughout the season. They've only had 1 losing week, probably since November, since like you went to the Lions full time. Like they've been playing like 500 week to week. They had a streak where they won 5-0. Like if they have another streak where they're winning, 3, 4, 5 games in a row and kind of cement themselves like out of that play-in. I think this can be a playoff team. And you kind of look at the bottom of the East, Kory. There's not anyone I think that can jump them to like possibly like get more wins than them. I mean, like you look at the bottom of the East, it's pretty damn bad.
Yeah, just taking a quick gander at it right now, and I don't see Orlando, don't see Miami. And the thing is, I don't see Miami. They're about to lose Jimmy Butler. Hawks, no. Bulls, no. Philly, their season's pretty much over with. So I mean, Pistons are in a really good spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think who knows what happens at the trade deadline? Who knows what kind of talent they add? If they get a veteran guard, that could be good for them. They get more shot creation, maybe a stretch 4. I think that could really cement them, help them get into that top 6, because I think you kind of look at the schedule and you kind of look at the bottom of the East, and I think this could be a team that's not hosting a play-in tournament game. This could be a team that's hosting the 3 seed, which I think is pretty exciting because we really haven't had a good basketball team to talk about. It seems since like the Blake Griffin era, and even before that was like Stan Van Gundy's like 2nd year, I believe. So it's been a minute since the Pistons have had like a good basketball team to support and root for.
Yeah, and this place is dying for a winner, so I can understand why people are waiting for they're wanting that big jump on the big jump. Go make a move. But I mean, the slow and steady approach for Detroit teams has always worked, and I just don't think that just I think right now they can make a playoff push as currently constructed, and I think if they do make them, will say this: I do think making a small move to bring in another veteran. Like I said, you got my mind thinking about the Bobby Portis. Like, okay, Bobby Portis adding a guy like that could definitely cement them in like 5 or 6, maybe sneak up to 4. But I'll say definitely 5 or 6. But I mean, if you're as currently constructed, they can make it. But I think if they're able to go ahead and sneak in another sneaky veteran at the trade deadline without giving up too much or giving up any young talent, then that'll be a solid move. Um, they, I will say this, and hopefully he doesn't look at this and rake me over coals, but I also think you have to consider seeing what the market is for Tobias Harris at this point. Just to see what it is. Now that's not saying you trade him, because you got to, this is a guy that you know did want to come back. This is a guy that does have his deal will be expiring next year, so maybe you still just want to keep him for next year when you're trying to make that jump at the trade deadline, and a team is looking to get out of a superstars deal. Then boom, you have that chip right there in your back pocket. So it's a lot of options they got. But again, staying on topic, they can make a playoff push as currently constructed. I would just say that adding the extra veteran may just increase their chances of getting out the first round.
Yeah, I mean, get your first playoff win since 2008. Like, Pistons fans they've been so patient. They're just so starving for a winner. Like, doing these podcasts a couple times a week, like it's amazing. Like when they win, man, like we do these post-game podcasts after every game, like around like 10 o'clock at night. You got like 50, 100 comments just waiting for me to start a podcast, start a live stream. Like they're just so hungry for a winner, and I love to see it.
You know what? I would say this. I think, and then again, not trying to bring them up, I think Lions fans were hungry for a winner. I think Pistons fans are hungry to see this team just restored back to its original glory, because this is still one of the few franchises that have at least three NBA championships. So the Pistons being this bad is not normal. I mean, again, when I did my interview with Isaiah Thomas, he just said the fact, paraphrase it, the fact that we're looking at 30 games in a season as a bar of achievement for the Pistons is heartbreaking. So I think that's the real big thing. Is like we're not sitting up here saying that we're used to the Pistons winning the championship every year, but people are used to the Pistons being in the mix of the playoffs, and to see this team not have been in the postseason since 2019, it's odd. Even the Teal era had playoff appearances.
I think the standard, especially for Isaiah Thomas, the standard was always compete for the playoffs and give yourself a chance to win a championship.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And even like with Bill Davidson, when he did own the team, like the standard was to make the playoffs. Like making 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals was the standard here in the mid 2000s. Like Pistons fans expected to be in the hunt for the NBA championship every year. And since Tom Gores has purchased his team, there's been a lot of failures, a lot of coaching changes, front office regimes, missed draft picks, all that stuff. We're not going to harp on it too much, but I think if they come out the season and they win 40 plus games, I think that's where the standard should be with this team. Is like you have talent, you have a coach that wants to be here, you have a coach that is investing a lot of his time, energy, and effort with these young guys, not only on the basketball court, but as human beings at the end of the day. Like there's no reason why these guys can't stack wins, stack confidence, and get better each and every day. Like you look, Cade Cunningham's 23 years old. Like your franchise player is 23 and he's putting up these type of numbers. It's insane. You don't have anything long term on your books. Like you extended Cade, but like you got like Tobias on a 2-year deal. Malik's on an expiring. Who knows what happens there? Tim's on an
got to bring him back. Got to bring him back. Sorry.
That might be a little difficult, especially because they don't have his bird rights. So it's going to be
and he's going to get it back.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Pistons.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe he takes a hometown discount to stay here, but I doubt it. I've really liked him, and I know me and you were really early of calling Malik Beasley, which just like to pat ourselves on the back there. But
yeah.
Overall, I think to kind of like finish this topic, I think they can push for the playoffs, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens at the deadline. Be really interesting to see, like, can they keep this trajectory up of playing 500 basketball on a week-to-week basis? But we have one more topic, and I saw this watching Paul George's podcast, and I found it really interesting. So Paul George said he almost came to the Pistons when Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond were here during the Van Gundy era, which, a little PSA, like Reggie Jackson and Paul George are like best friends, which I think that's probably why it almost happened. So I kind of wanted to ask you, like, if you kind of like have revisionist history and go back, like, if you think about it, our small forward at the time was, Markieff Morris, Reggie Bullock. Like, what happens if you have a Paul George with Andre Drummond and a Reggie Jackson and those guys?
Well, first off, I think you're definitely looking at a team that gets off the first round. How far they go, that's neither here nor there, because Paul George has he has a tendency to just not play his best during the playoffs at times. It's really weird. It's like this guy during the season is like, I'm not calling him MVP, but during the season, Paul George will play MVP-esque basketball. But then when he gets to the postseason, it's like he's a shell of himself. It's kind of weird. But I mean, I think that if you get Paul George with Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, I think that would have been the team that could have made some noise. I'm not going to sit up here and say they would have been like a Eastern Conference contender for going to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they could have been a team to be reckoned with. I mean, Andre Drummond was still a double guy. Reggie Jackson, wasn't really a fan of him as much of a ball handler, but I mean, and a facilitator, but the guy could put the ball on the floor and score. And it was really just those two. They had some guys around them, but they were really missing that spark of a guy where you put the ball on his hands and he's giving you 25 on a bad night. That's Paul George. So, I mean, yeah, it definitely would have been interesting to see, to say the least. I think that if Paul George came, this how can I put it? This little lull that the Pistons have been in for years, that would not have existed.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you could have had like a Paul George and LeBron in the East. Like, obviously the team would not be an 8 seed, but you could have had an Eastern Conference probably final showdown. It would have been like really cool. But
they could have won. They could have won at it again.
Yeah, I mean that would have been like really fun to watch as a fan. But
yeah,
I just wanted to bring it up. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that podcast. It was actually pretty good with Andre Drummond.
Anything with Andre Drummond, I always end up for some reason catching it late, but I'm gonna have to go back. I did see some comments about him the other day about wanting to end his career here, and so that kind of piqued me of like, okay, he's bringing this up again. Okay, let me go back and go look at it. So I'm good. That's something I plan to like circle back to. Who knows? I might do it after this.
Yeah, I mean, probably the funniest part of that podcast is I posted it on my Twitter. Paul George said the reason why the Pistons are having success right now is the return of what we got for Andre Drummond, trading him to Cleveland, which made me freaking laugh because I was like, yeah, Brandon Knight and John Henson are really doing a lot for us right now, PG. Oh man, like I was dying. You'll have to watch the podcast. It's a pretty good podcast. Little spoiler.
That just made my brain hurt.
Yeah, I mean it's honestly pretty.
Yeah, Brandon Knight just that just takes me back to a place during my fan days because I really hated that pick.
Yeah, once DeAndre Jordan dunked on him, it was over. It was over. Any confidence that guy had, it was gone. It was completely gone.
Yeah.
We do have a question for you from Bayan, who actually became a member, which shout out to Bayan. Appreciate you. He wanted to know if you think that Duren will demand big money with his next contract. Obviously, he's up for a contract extension, and the way he's played, I would say it's been pretty inconsistent defensively. But like, if you had to maybe ballpark, like what you think he could demand, do you think it's like around the, let's just say like 5 for, I don't know, 50, maybe a 10 mil a year type of deal? Do you think 20 mil a year for Duren is out of the realm for the Pistons to extend him?
Ooh, I honestly think, this is my honest opinion, I think that if you're getting into how can I say this? I think if you're getting north of 17 million per year for Duren, you might have to start looking into some other options. I just don't. I mean, and again, he's playing better, but I think that there's a possibility you could get better in the low post scoring and defensively out of your big man, that he may not necessarily be providing. And again, I still think that things could change. He could depend. I want to see how this year kind of finishes out under Bickerstaff, because here's the one thing about Duren: we know he has the talent, but just like a lot of these guys, they're dealing with coaching turnover the past couple of years, so they're not really able to have a continuity in messaging, and it's like it's a rock and a hard place for Duren, because do you want to see this guy walk out the door, go somewhere else, and become a true animal when you already had him? Or do you want to take a chance and let him finally have continuity? I mean, this guy has had 3 different head coaches in 3 different years, his first 3 years. And he's not getting a consistent message with the big man coaches that he's been working with. It's always something different. So it's like, I would like to see what he looks like 2 years under Bickerstaff's, under Bickerstaff and his coaching staff, and kind of go from there to see if there's any improvements, any kind of carryover and whatnot. It's just kind of weird. It's like I would say if he's gonna demand big money, I think it'll pretty much just come if he just goes off the charts next year. That's when I can see him demanding big money. If he has that year where it's just like it's a huge leap, this guy is not only grabbing, not only improved defensively in the low post, but he added some low post moves, because we know he has an above the rim game. But if he starts adding those low post moves and showing he's savvy in the paint, then that's when he could probably we're talking about big money to extend him. But I would say it's null and void right now.
Yeah, I don't really know what to expect out of a contract extension. The Pistons might just say, like, you're still under contract for another year, prove it, and then we'll kind of have those discussions, which I think that could possibly happen. I will say, though, the past 2 weeks he has shown improvement defensively. The Pistons have been using him in more blitzing, especially on the perimeter, taking more gambles, kind of playing the passing lanes. I think if he does want a contract from the Pistons defensively, he's going to have to put more games together where it's more of a consistent basis, and not just like, oh, this week he played well, the following week he kind of fell off a cliff. Which he's still 21, which I think there is still room to improve. I think we're at the halfway point of the season. He's been a lot more consistent. He's been playing a lot better basketball over, I would say, the past 2.5 weeks. Not only scoring the basketball, but also, against Alperen Sengun. Guy had him in a blender. Like, he did not do well, but I think his biggest kryptonite right now is just the stretch five. Stretch five seemed to like really bother him, and it's just when you're watching him, he kind of has slow feet in a sense, where maybe he can, train his body this summer to get a little bit more slender, because I don't think he has to be as bulky as he is, because he looks like he could be playing linebacker for the Lions, man. Like, that guy is cheap.
That dude is. That's why I gotta watch what I say about Duran. Duran look like he's the type of guy that could, if basketball did not work out for him, he could definitely just go to WWE and just start choke slamming people to hell. I mean, that dude is a specimen.
Yeah, guy's built, man. I was like, man, you gain any more muscle, Dan Campbell's gonna put you on edge next to Aiden Hutchinson, man. Like, it's crazy how built he is. But thank you for the question, Brian. I'm not really sure like what happened.
That's interesting.
What you got?
Blockbuster deal. The Seattle Storm are trading 6-time star Jewel Lloyd to the Las Vegas Aces in a multi-team move that sends 3-time All-Star Kelsey Plum to the Los Angeles Sparks.
Ooh. That is a good trade.
That's crazy.
Kelsey Plum was on the Aces for a while. That's.
Oh, I wonder. I know this is Pistons talk, but I wonder what Asia Wilson thinks about that. She's probably
pissed. She's probably ticked. Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wait, actually, a lot of people actually want to ask you questions, which I'm not really surprised they missed you. Like I told you when I was texting you earlier.
I thought you were gassing.
No, I don't gas. I'm not one of those ass kissers. You should know that by now.
I know.
I'm not gonna kiss your ass. But Life with Chris had a question for you. Said, Kory also wondered, you've been an amazing beat writer. Would you ever do your own sports channel like you do your own version of that place you used to work?
I'll answer this. I don't want to be a cop-out when I answer this. If I am in the, how can I say this? Because I don't want to sound like I'm, okay. I want to preface my comments by saying I am very happy where I work at. I want to make sure if my employer sees this, I'm very happy where I work. Having said that, because of where I work, that is not a possibility just based on rules and regulations of the company. The podcast that I'm co-host on, Dungeon of Doom, the Lions podcast, I'm able to do that because it's through our job, but hosting is hosting my own channel or podcast. I'm not able to do that at the current time, but should anything change and the opportunity presents itself, that will be probably the first thing I do. But at the current time, I'm not able to. But yeah, I can do as many appearances on podcasts as I want, though, which is cool.
Yeah, there you go. I know Chris is a big supporter of not only yours but mine as well. And the place we used to work, I'm sure he saw you on there with Stick and Joey when they first launched, when you guys did the morning show. That actually popped up on my timeline on YouTube not too long ago when you guys were talking the trick. So, which is kind of funny. I was just like, why is this popping up on my timeline now? Like, that's actually kind of wild, but that's cool, man. Like, I know you kind of put you in a tough spot with your work, and didn't mean to do that, but
Oh no, it's not a tough spot. I just need to know how to talk.
Yeah, you don't want to get in trouble.
I just wanted to make sure they knew, like, oh, so you want to leave and go? No, that's not what I'm saying. Just saying, I just have to be a smart employee.
Yeah. Michael Powell asked, as the standings are now, Kory, do you think the Pistons can win a series?
Let me go back to this season. So right now, I know they're 7 right now, technically. So they will play Boston No. But if they were 6 and had to go against the Knicks, I would give them a puncher's shot. I would give them a puncher's shot against the Knicks because here's why. I think Detroit is scrappy enough to win 2 of those games, just outright and win them, and then steal 2 of them. Just off of the fact that Tom Thibodeau is going to play his starters into the dirt.
Yeah.
So if they got to go against Boston, no, I think Boston is going back to back, to be quite honest, regardless of what Cleveland is doing. I think Boston's going back to back. But if the Pistons are number 6 and they go against the Knicks, yeah, I give them a puncher's chance of winning that series as currently constructed. If they make any additions, yeah, I think they could win that.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, if they're 7, let's just say they finish 7, they'd have to play a play-in tournament game, win that, and then you have to host Boston, which, I mean, I think that would be fireworks if you got to host the Boston Celtics, especially with all the crap that they've talked and the way that they beat the Pistons, how they beat the Pistons. I think it would be a really big challenge. If there's one team I want the Pistons to play in the first round, I said it today, there's 3 teams that I'm looking at: Orlando, Indiana, and New York. If you get New York, man, like you finish the 6th seed and New York's the 3 seed. That would be, I think, must-see TV because Pistons went into MSG twice and just snatched their chain and just beat them, man. It's honestly crazy, like how well the Cade and those guys played MSG. But I think that's constructed right now without any moves. Where the standings are at, I think they have a pretty good chance of hosting a first-round playoff series, but don't know if they could win one because we don't even know what the team will look like past the trading deadline.
Fair enough.
Okay, I should have clarified them by being the 6th seed. Yeah, if they're the 6th seed, they'll host the Knicks. I don't know if they can beat the Knicks in this series. They might be able to win a game or 2, but I mean that'd be a tough team to go up against the playoffs.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Got one more question, then we can wrap this up.
Okay.
This comes from my guy Jay Hart. And he said, if we're talking trades today, here's my topic targets: Bruce Brown, Bobby Portis, we already talked about.
Yeah.
Bones Highland, Chris Middleton, or Malcolm Brogdon. Any of these guys help us out immediately. Do you have any thoughts with like any of those players that Jay Hart had mentioned?
I think Bruce Brown and Malcolm Brogdon instantly improved this team, most definitely. I think Malcolm Brogdon would take a little bit of pressure off of Cade, most definitely, just with everything that he's able to do with his game. And then Bruce Brown, just on both ends of the floor, I think he's just as scrappy as they come, and bringing him back to a place that, while it might be different coaching, it's a city that he's familiar with, played here. So I think Bruce Brown and Malcolm Brogdon would be 2 guys I would look at. Chris Middleton, I mean, yeah, he's played here. I just don't know how much he could really help this season. He'd be a savvy veteran guy to have in the locker room, but I honestly have not seen enough of his play this season to say like, okay, maybe he could step out there. But I've seen some stuff from Bruce Brown and Malcolm Brogdon where I could just be like, okay, those 2 guys make sense to me off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think Malcolm Brogdon, we talked about ad nauseum, especially with him being in Washington and not really playing that much.
Yeah.
If he's healthy, I think it'd be a good backup for Cade because I think those two guys play really, really similar to each other. Bruce Brown, I'd be intrigued, but I think the price would be a little hefty, especially with Toronto. They're not going to give him away for free.
No, they're not.
Bruce is familiar with Detroit. He's familiar just with the organization, and I think he's one of those dog defenders that we talked about, like with Bobby Portis. Bones Highland, I'm intrigued, but the more I watch Bones Highland, I think he's so similar to Marcus Sasser, and it would kind of be redundant in a sense where it's just like, I don't really know if you want 2 guys that basically do the same thing and just looking for the shot all the time. Chris Middleton, absolutely not. He's washed those injuries.
Yeah, that's not all on Chris.
No, like Chris Middleton would be like a Josh Smith trade. Like that's exactly what it would be. Like he might be able to give you buckets, but it'd be really inefficient. He wouldn't be able to stay healthy for more than maybe 40 games a season. I just watched him last night. He just laid an egg. I think Chris Middleton of Detroit would be a really bad fit unless you're getting something in return where you're getting some draft capital. But you look at the Bucks; they really don't have that much draft capital to really spare, especially with trading for Dame. But I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with the deadline. But I do want to wrap this podcast up. We've been on for an hour and 25 minutes. We have over 1,100 of you guys in here right now. So shout out to you guys. Kory, I want to give you the floor to plug and promote anything you're working on. I don't know how often you do the Lions podcast throughout the season and the off season. Like, are we going to start getting like some mock draft stuff from you?
Yeah. So again, first off, thanks for having me on. This is my first season in the number 2 role. This is my first season doing the podcast. So this is all foreign to me, but I can tell you that starting this week, we're going to do our evaluations on the Lions season. So I know tomorrow Ben's going to be doing quarterbacks. On Tuesday, I'll be doing running backs. So look out for that. We're probably going to start doing our mock draft podcast maybe sometime around the combine. So stay on the look out for that. And who knows? Right now, with the Lions ending a little bit early, you might see me return to Pistons for a minute. You might not. I don't know, but now that the season is over, I'm definitely going to be having a more invested look on them. Now the NFL season's over, I'm having a more invested look on them, and we'll be able to kind of like pop back on here whenever if you want me to be able to check out some things right there. Also, too, for all you wrestling fans out there, if there are any wrestling fans, next Saturday at DraftKings Sports and Social in Troy, Michigan, my friends, they have a wrestling podcast called Potters of Destiny. We're having a Royal Rumble watch party, and I'll have all the details on my Instagram and on my Facebook. We're giving away a WWE Attitude Era Championship belt that night.
I think most of my followers are wrestling fans. I don't know if you've seen any of my final score graphics before with like Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. Like anytime, anytime there's a chance to incorporate WWE with the Detroit Pistons, I try to do so. Like if the Pistons would have won last night, I had a meme saved with the Road Warriors, and I photoshopped JB's face on top of the Road Warriors with Caden Durant. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people got a kick out of my my wrestling video that I shared when you tagged me to post for the night. Like when Heyman talking with Roman Reigns, like just when I tried to leave, he brings me back in.
Yeah, you're always welcome on this podcast. You know that. Like anytime you want to come on, anytime you want to chop it up. I know you have a little bit more free time now that the Lions aren't playing in the playoffs or even the Super Bowl for that matter. So you're always welcome. But I do have your.
I definitely want to come back on during for the recap of the trade deadline, because I want to see what direction this team is going on, and I'm probably going to be very opinionated on that once I get caught back up on Pistons. So I'm probably going to be doing a little bit of catching up back on them now that the season is over. NFL season is over.
I was gonna say, we're gonna have you back on after the trade deadline's over. You're always welcome. But I do have your Twitter link below for people that do want to follow you there. I never know whether or not to add your Facebook, because I kind of feel like your Facebook is professional, but it's also personal, and I don't want like crazies going at your Facebook. But
I'll say this: if you find me on Facebook, you find me. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, like I follow your Facebook, man. It's comical, it's professional. Some of the posts, I'm like, good God. Like it makes me laugh. But we'll see you guys tomorrow. We have a post game podcast immediately after the Pistons and Cavs game, so probably like around like 10:30 at night. But see you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a good night, and fuck the Chiefs.